Let's move out. Reporting. Bomb has been planted. Terrorists win. Let's go, people. Bomb has been planted. Terrorists win. Let's go, let's go! Help! Blending. Bomb has been planted. Bomb has been defused. Counter-terrorists win. Let's go! Let's go! Decoy! Grenade! What are you doing? Counter-terrorists win.
So 13 years ago, I ditched the AMD processor in my personal gaming rig and switched to an Intel Core 2 Duo E6600. And since then, I have never looked back, because quite frankly, while AMD has had some reasonably compelling values on offer, typically my personal rig upgrades were dictated more by who had the top performance versus who had some good bang for the buck stuff in the low end. Well, today is an interesting day because while AMD's Ryzen 3rd gen processors, so I'm holding a 3900X here, aren't exactly brand spanking new, what is a feature that I sorely need for my setup. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is my gaming desktop, but the key component that's missing is the desktop. It's not here. I run a single Thunderbolt cable through the wall into this server closet where my personal rig, my wife's rig, and my home server all reside. This allows me to isolate not just the noise, but also the thermals so that this room doesn't heat up. I don't have central AC in my house. Check this out. The ASRock X570 Aqua is one of the first AMD Ryzen 3rd gen supporting motherboards with not one, but 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and we're gonna take it for a test drive. After this message from our sponsor. Vertigear's PL4500 RGB LED upgrade kit wirelessly connects to your PC and features tons of color customization options, including audio and visual sync and more. Check them out at the link in the video description. All right. So why don't we start with taking a look at the board. Oh crap, where'd I put the CPU? Left that in the pocket of my sweater. LTTstore.com. First, I should probably acknowledge the elephant in the room. The keen-eyed among you probably noticed that this is not, in fact, the motherboard that I claimed to have upgraded to a couple of months ago. This is the new Titan RTX graphics card, but I had to go back to my old motherboard and Extreme Edition 5960X 8-core because I didn't realize when I put the new board in that there were no Thunderbolt 3 cables long enough to go from my desktop through the wall and then into my server closet. Fortunately, we have a solution for that today, and we will get to that later. First, we gotta swap out this board. Now, those of you who are new to the channel might not know this, but we actually used to do a ton of videos just about motherboards, but the truth is, I just got kind of bored of them. I just felt like I didn't really have anything to say. This one, I have a fair bit to say about. The X570 Aqua ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's limited to just 999 units, presumably because they figure not too many people are going to be able to afford this monstrosity. It is one of the heaviest boards that I have ever encountered, and I don't want to show it to you guys like this. Let's get this horrible peel off it. Wow, ASRock has some work to do on their peel game. That. Base Express, this is one to be taking the port for SLI including. That is a DisplayPort input. So in ASRock's own lineup of graphics cards, they actually have cards that have an internal DisplayPort connection so that you can plug it right into there, and that'll inject the DisplayPort signal that Thunderbolt 3 requires. Pretty freaking cool. I won't be using that feature, but that's okay because they've got me covered too. Around the back is where things get really interesting to me. So we've got AX Wi-Fi, that's Wi-Fi 6, PS2, in case you really need something to work on an interrupt basis or whatever. There's a second DisplayPort in. So we've got 2 DP-ins built in for the Thunderbolt 3 ports that are right on the motherboard. And aside from USB 3.1 gen, USB 310 gig, check this out. We've also got 10 gig networking. So the irony is that this board is loaded up for Mondo expansion. Oh yeah, did I even mention the dual M.2 expansion slots? But it already has everything that most people could ever need built onto it, so. Now that gives us a better look at the board. So there's our X570 chipset. Here's our dual M.2 slots, both of which are Gen 4. Very nice. Our front USB 3 Type-C, our regular front USB 3, our other regular front USB 3, our front USB 2, HD audio. What else we got here that's exciting? Oh yes, that Aquantia 10 gig networking. Oh, and of course, aside from the CPU and the chipset, the VRMs are also cooled by our water block. Pretty sweet. Oh, now that's interesting. If I was going to install a single M.2 in this board, I would probably go with the top one because it seems to have much better thermal contact with our water block solution compared to the bottom one, which does have a metal spreader on it, but only makes contact with the metal of our monoblock right here. So it's probably not going to do a ton of cooling. I mean, to be clear, even that is going to be better than nothing, but I'd use this one if you can. All right, let's get this puppy installed. Sorry, I mean kitty. So I usually find the best way to line up a monoblock, rather than laying the board down and then putting the block on top of it, is to go the other way around. So lay the block down, plug in all your front leads so that you don't forget, and then line it up from above so you can kind of guide the holes down onto their corresponding threaded inserts there. Whoa, do you hear that? This loop is not particularly well sealed at the moment. Okay, so we're gonna open her up right here. Okay, there we go. There we go. Water cooling maintenance is so much fun. All right, let's drain this. Not too much though. I don't think it's going to be necessary to completely drain the loop. Why? You're literally standing on a Titan. You move. So, here's the plan. We're going to strip out the expansion cards and kind of hang them over here. Then swap in the motherboard and then put them all back in. Move handy.
No problem.
And then cool is that even on the Intel side of things, generally speaking, Thunderbolt is added to motherboards with these expansion cards that have a header that plugs into the board and then require the DisplayPort signal to be injected from the graphics card outside. So it takes up one of your PCI Express slots. In this case, to the board this time around is something that I am definitely looking forward to. Now these are not spectacular memory modules for the chip that I'm putting in. These are pretty old. They're 2666 C16 Dominator Platinums, but realistically I don't need the extra 5–10% performance that badly anyway. So I'm gonna stick with them. So this is funny. One of the features for this board apparently is the slight leeway in the positioning of this integrated IO shield, because sometimes the tolerances on the cases aren't perfect. You know, that's actually pretty smart, because sometimes you do have trouble with those integrated IO shields and actually getting them into the case. Cute idea, Azrock, I like it. All right, well, that's a little awkward. P3 board, BC. So what the heck? Is this leaking? It is. Why is this leaking? Okay, we will deal with that in a moment. We're gonna make it. Oh shoot. I don't think so. And every time I pull this up, this drips. Crap, this is bad. For those wondering what a tech YouTuber's attic looks like, basically the same as anyone else's attic, but with more YouTube branded Magic 8 balls and signed Der Bauer CPU IHS. All right, but the most important thing up here for our purposes today is this. This is my old personal rig chassis, which very still use. Go back to like better. Oh, jackpot! No wonder I didn't take this out. It's 3/8 inch tubing stretched over a 1/2 inch fitting. Oh, that's how stretched that was. Look at the difference in diameter. We got it though. That should be a long enough piece of tubing. And see if we're still leaking. No drops. Now after, and I don't even blame you. Okay, cleanest build you ever saw? Maybe not. Good enough. Right here. All right, that's a good sign. Okay. All 64 gigs of RAM detected, Ryzen 9 3900X 12 core processor, X570 Alpha. Excellent. Oh, I guess we should connect the Wi-Fi so at least have a network connection. Which one's Bluetooth? Doesn't say. What I was expecting was some kind of USB 4 implementation here, but on ASRock's website, it straight up has an Intel Thunderbolt driver download. I mean, maybe this is just something that I haven't encountered yet, where the specs are so similar that you just literally use Intel's own software on an AMD board. Guess we'll find out. All right, speaking of sick, I have updated my BIOS. I have applied my XMP profile, so my memory is now at least running at 2666 instead of 2133. And I am ready to install my Intel Thunderbolt driver. So I told you guys before I had a solution to the problem of getting my Thunderbolt signal from the other side of this wall to my desktop setup here, and I do. The problem is that I'm not allowed to tell you what it is, and I'm not allowed to show it to you. So it's a little awkward. So we're just gonna use a PCI slot as a pass-through, plug that in, and then plug this into the back of the graphics card, just like that. Not exactly elegant, but hey, if you want elegant, buy a Mac. Hey! G-Sync display connected, everything is working just effortlessly. It looks like that one was the right one. Wow, my dock's even working and everything. So it's official. I've gone AMD. Now we've just got to run the secret sauce here.
सॉरी नहीं, वो मैं एक दोस्त को भेज रहा था, वो गलती से आपको सेंड हो गया। हाँ जी रिपेयर करा दूंगा। हाँ जी रिपेयर करवा ही रहा हूँ बस। हाँ जी रिपेयर करवा ही रहा हूँ बस। हाँ जी रिपेयर करवा ही रहा हूँ। हाँ जी रिपेयर करवा ही रहा हूँ। हाँ करवा रहा हूँ। क्या हुआ यार? फोन खराब हो गया है, कुछ भी लिखता हूं तो मैसेज बन के किसी को भी सेंड हो जाता है। तूने बैटमैन वर्सेस सुपरमैन देखी? पूछ मत बेंच, एक बंदी को ले गया था डेट पे, सोचा था मूवी के बाद आस्क आउट करूंगा। क्या बात है? पॉपकॉर्न का टब लैब पे रखा हुआ था, वो खा रही थी, इतने में वंडर वुमन की एंट्री हो गई, बेंच टब ऊपर हो गया। कहती ये क्या है? मैंने कहा डार्लिंग बेंच, डार्क नाइट राइजेस। थप्पड़ मार के चली गई बेंच। तुझे अपनी फीलिंग्स पे जरा सा भी कंट्रोल नहीं है ना? प्यार के बिना अकेला सा हो गया हूँ यार। पापा भी 1 साल से दुबई में है, बहुत कम घर आते हैं बेंच, कोई अपना है ही नहीं। मेरे भाई मैं हूं ना। मुंह में लेगा, पूरा दिन अपनी बंदी के साथ लगा रहता है। और तू क्या कर रहा है? तेरे घर का वाईफाई फ्लो है क्या? चल तो रहा है, क्यों? ओए तू फिर से गेम्स डाउनलोड कर रहा है? मूवी डाउनलोड कर रहा है? अपलोड क्या? लास्ट नाइट आई रिकॉर्डेड माई फैक्ट टेप, उसी को अपलोड कर रहा हूँ। कहाँ? माई ग्रैंडफादर लव्ड fuddy.com। ओ फक! क्या हुआ? पापा का मैसेज आया, मेरा बच्चा मैं आ रहा हूं आज MKC माँ की चू। पापा ओह ये
नमस्ते अंकल।
जीते रहो बेटे, जीते रहो। तुम बच्चे भी अब धीरे धीरे ऊपर आने लगे हो। पहले पैर छूते थे, अब घुटने छूते हो। आने वाले टाइम में शायद लंडी पकड़ लो। माँ की चू।
अंकल पूरे छू लेता हूँ।
माँ की चू, लुक एट यू बेटे, कितना बड़ा हो गया है। आपने कब देखा?
पापा आपने तो सरप्राइज दे दिया बेंचो। अबे ओ अंकल के सामने तो बेंचो मत बोल।
माँ की चू बेटे, हमारी पूरी फैमिली पोकेमॉन फैमिली है। इसकी मम्मी को पसंद है राइचू, इसको पिकाचू, मेरे को माँ की चू।
माँ की चू कौन सा पोकेमॉन था?
मेरे ग्रैंडफादर को तो एफ पसंद है।
यहाँ सबको पता है ये बात।
पीकाहू का ट्रेनर एफ।
क्या?
एश। ही गॉट इट।
सॉरी
बेटे समीर, देख तेरे लिए क्या लाया।
सेल्फी स्टिक बेंच।
मौफा जी, ये तो यहाँ भी मिल जाती है। स्पेशल सेल्फी स्टिक है ये मेरे जिगर के लिए। सिर्फ ओ ये बोलने पे फोटो लेती है माँ की चू। ओ ये, ओ ये, ओ ये, ओ ये, ओ ये। आई लाइक इट, थैंक यू मोफा जी। और बेटे तेरे लिए ये ले घड़ी, रात में ग्लो करती है माँ की चू।
अंकल छोटा बच्चा थोड़ी ना हूँ, ग्लोइंग वॉच।
छोटे बच्चे से याद आया, तेरा नुन्नू कैसा है बेटे?
कौन नुन्नू?
जब तू छोटा सा था तेरा नुन्नू तेरी पैंट की जिप में फंस जाता था और तू पूरा दिन रोता रहता था माँ की चू। अब तो नहीं फंसता। अब तो इसका नुन्नू किसी और की पैंट में फंसता।
नहीं फंसता, नहीं फंसता अंकल, अब नहीं फंसता। क्या फंसेगा? अब नहीं फंसता। पापा बेंचो मेरे लिए क्या लाए हो?
एक सेकंड, एक। हेलो लीजा, भोसड़ी वाले कहाँ पे? गुड़गांव। शाम को कहाँ पे? गुड़गांव। ओके जय माँ की चू।
ये कौन सी लैंग्वेज थी?
बेटे ये सीक्रेट लैंग्वेज थी। शाम को गुड़गांव जाना है।
अंकल गुड़गांव का नाम अब चेंज होकर गुरुग्राम हो गया है।
बेटे टट्टी को कितना भी चीनी में घोल दो, वो कभी मफिन नहीं बनेगी माँ की चू। या लीजा, आ रहा हूँ माँ की चू। उससे किसी भी तरह वो सीक्रेट कोड निकलवाओ, और अगर नहीं माने तो वहीं पे कंदील फीचरिंग राखी सावंत की डीवीडी पड़ी है, हाथ पैर बांध के दिखाओ। और अगर फिर भी न माने तो चूतनों के बीच में लाल मिर्ची का तड़का दो, 8 के गोले हगेगा माँ की चू।
डोंट माइंड अंकल, बट आपका बिजनेस तो छतरी का था ना?
बेटे छतरी का बिजनेस तो दुनिया को दिखाने के लिए है।
तो आप दुबई में करते क्या हो?
मैं तो रैकेट चलाता हूँ।
बैडमिंटन खेलते हो बेंचो?
माँ की चू मेरे बेटे, रैकेट मतलब इलीगल धंधा, माफिया, माफिया, हेरोइन का बिजनेस। ओह ये, मेगन फॉक्स मिलेगी? लो,
मुजरा नहीं करवाते, ड्रग्स का हेरोइन का बिजनेस है।
मोफा जी लीजा कौन है? सेक्रेटरी, पर्सनल।
चुप कर बेंचो। पापा मेरे लिए क्या लाए हो?
बेटे लीजा।
पापा गिफ्ट बेंच।
लीजा लाया हूँ बेटे। बाप हो तो ऐफा।
ये कब हुआ?
बेटे आज से 4 महीने पहले दुबई में मुझे गोली लगी थी। हॉस्पिटल जा नहीं सकता था तो लीजा ने ही मेरी गोली निकाली। गोली निकालते निकालते मेरी गोली चल गई। ओह ये मोफा जी। गोली सीधा उसके हाथ में लगी तो दोनों को हॉस्पिटल जाना पड़ा, और उसी में ही प्यार हो गया माँ की चू। ले बेटे लीजा से बात कर।
मैं क्या बात करूं?
तू कुत्ते का पीला नहीं है, तू मर्द का बच्चा है, तू शेर का बच्चा है माँ की चू। बात कर।
हेलो बेंचो। पापा आप ही बात करो। यार ये तो आवाज से इतनी हॉट लग रही है। मम्मी कैसे बोल दूं यार?
कोड मिल गया, कोड मिल गया। माँ की चू लीजा, आई लव यू। बेटा कोड लिख, बेटा कोड लिख। TUMCHUTIYAHO। थैंक यू लीजा। ये ले फिर पलंग छोड़ देंगे आज। बेटा कोड बता जल्दी।
मैं आपको सेंड कर देता हूं। ये किसको सेंड हो रहा है? नहीं नहीं नहीं। क्या हुआ? बबली सर को सेंड हो गया। अबे उनको कौन सा समझ आना है सीक्रेट कोड वेंचो? तुम चूतिया हो। हाँ वेंचो। तू भी है?
ये भी है। मैं तो हूतिया हूँ। अबे तुम चूतिया हो, सीक्रेट कोड था जो बबली सर को सेंड हो गया। कैसे? फोन कर रहे हैं। बेटे मेरी बात करा। माखी चू नहीं। दूध और बुंड दोनों के फटने पे आवाज नहीं आती।
और 4 विंग्स खींचने में मदद देने के लिए धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद।
Yes, sir. May I help you?
नो, मुझे कंप्लेंट करनी है। कंप्लेंट रजिस्टर मिलेगा?
Sorry, sir.
Why you? जयश्री, सॉरी तो एयरलाइन को होना चाहिए। इतनी खूबसूरत लड़कियों से सेफ्टी ड्रिल कराते हैं कि मैं तो आप ही को देखता रह गया। इंस्ट्रक्शंस पे कंसंट्रेट ही नहीं कर पाया। अब अगर प्लेन पानी वानी में उतर गया तो आई मीन मुझे पता ही नहीं होगा कि मुझे करना क्या है। और अगर मेरी जान चली गई तो इसका जिम्मेदार कौन होगा? कौन? बोलो।
इसे पढ़ लेंगे तो पानी वानी में बचने का चांस है आपका।
वाह, अगर आप नहीं होती तो मेरा क्या होता?
ना कुछ होता और ना कुछ होने वाला है।
Well, it's a long flight to London. पता नहीं।
We do have the extremely lovely.
Girls, eat your breakfast. Yeah, there. He's gone. Put two.
Sorry. और मैं बह गया।
बड़ी वो है यार।
वो होना इलीगल तो नहीं है इस देश में?
अभी तो इलीगल है, पर 1 घंटे में मेरी शिफ्ट खत्म हो रही है।
मेरी भी खत्म। लवली कोइंसिडेंस। So where are we going for dinner tonight? मुझे टेबल बुक करना पड़ेगा।
आप मुझसे बात कर रहे हैं?
ओ यार, फिर वो बच्चों का खेल। मैं तुम्हें नहीं जानती, दफा हो जाओ एक्सेट्रा। आगे बढ़ते हैं ना सोनू। चल एक फ्रेश स्टार्ट लेते हैं। क्या? बहुत बहुत मेहनत करूंगा मैं। ऐसा सिस्टम बना।
99% of the food in the UK regarding the curries are all from North India, Delhi. I don't know if what we're doing in the UK is an insult to what they do over here. I'm not complete with the level of Indian food that I know.
Delhi. It's the 8th largest metropolis in the world, with 17 million residents.
My issue is, are we doing it wrong? Are we faking it? And Delhi's going to give me my answer.
So my mission in northern India is a personal culinary voyage of discovery. All the classics, such as Rogan Josh, biryani and butter chicken, come from here. In the 19th century, workers in the British Raj acquired a taste for curry, creating a demand for it upon their return to Britain. And we've been in love with Indian food ever since.
India is a big mystery to me. It's like the wacky races. Unbelievable.
I've never been to India before, and I have to say, it's quite a shock to the system.
I mean, this is extraordinary. I mean, kids everywhere. People actually living on the street.
I need a bit of guidance. I'm on my way to meet someone who can help at one of India's most famous restaurants, the Moti Mahal. It's here UK favourites such as tandoori chicken were invented. Seema Chandra is an expert on the food of northern India, and she's helping me with my travel itinerary.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well.
Good to see you.
Seema Chandra.
Nice to
Welcome
see you.
to India.
Very happy to be here.
Yes.
She's one of India's most respected food writers and restaurant critics.
Why have you brought me here?
Well, the reason I got you here is that this place
Yep.
is where most of Indian food, the way it's known the world over,
Yep.
they all began here.
I love Murg Mahani, the dal, chicken tikka.
Murg makhani as in butter
Yeah,
chicken, the
butter
way we
chicken,
call it.
yes.
Well, butter chicken started right here 60 years ago.
Seriously, is there a difference between what they're serving here to what we're serving in the UK?
It is nothing close
Ready?
to what you're going to get here. I mean, I was shocked that they even call it Indian food. In fact, I have a problem with it. It's not Indian. They
Seriously?
put cream and they put sugar into everything.
Yeah.
And they think, okay, that's it. That's done.
Yeah.
It's not Indian food. Shall we order? So we'd like butter chicken, of course. Butter chicken, tandoori chicken.
So you're more convinced that I'm going to taste a big difference to what I'm about to eat?
Without a doubt.
A doubt.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Are you going to eat with a knife and fork?
Will you tell me?
Can't get the flavor of Indian food.
With a knife and fork?
No.
I should try that back at home.
It's blasphemous. It's blasphemous. What do you think?
It's absolutely delicious. And it's not dry, it's moist.
It's moist, yeah.
Nice.
Now that's the dish you've been waiting for.
So the butter chicken, this is
Tell
it.
me.
Bloody hell.
It is? Nothing gives me more pleasure than seeing someone eat and saying bloody hell. How does this compare with what you've had?
I mean, that already, honestly, Seema, it's chalk and cheese. It's very flavoursome.
Yeah.
And there's no, it doesn't taste tainted, tarted. Do you know, it's not like it's been laced with tomato puree.
Not at all.
Fresh
Yeah.
tomatoes.
आओगे जब तुम सा साजना आओगे जब तुम साजना अंगना फूल खिलेंगे बरसेगा सावन बरसेगा सावन झूम झूम के दो दिल ऐसे मिलेंगे आओगे जब तुम साजना अंगना फूल खिलेंगे नैना तेरे कजरारे हैं नैनों पे हम दिल हारे हैं अनजाने ही तेरे नैनों ने वादे किए कई सारे हैं सांसों की ले मध्यम चले तो से गए पर से का सावन बरसे का सावन झूम झूम के दो दिल ऐसे मिलेंगे आओगे जब तुम हो साजना अंगना फूल खिलेंगे चंदा को ताकू रातों में है जिंदगी तेरे हाथों में पलकों पे झिलमिल तारे हैं आना भरी बरसातों में सपनों का जहां होगा खिला खिला बरसेगा सावन बरसेगा सावन झूम झूम के दो दिल ऐसे मिलेंगे Mama bani zani ma bani ni zara re pa pa mama ga ga जब तू लटक मटक लौंडो के ना है ये पाना ना खोना ही है तेरा ना होना जाने क्यों होना ही है तुमसे ही दिन होता है सुरमई शाम आती है तुमसे ही हर घड़ी सांस आती है जिंदगी कहलाती है तुमसे ही ना है ये पाना ना खोना ही है तेरा ना होना जाने क्यों होना ही है आँखों में आँखें तेरी बाहों में बाहें तेरी मेरा न मुझ में कुछ रहा हुआ क्या बातों में बातें तेरी रातें सौगातें तेरी क्यों तेरा सब ये हो गया हुआ क्या मैं कहीं भी जाता हूँ तुमसे ही मिल जाता हूँ तुमसे ही शोर में खामोशी है थोड़ी सी बेहोशी है तुमसे ही आधा सा वादा कभी आधे से ज्यादा कभी जी चाहे कर लूं इस तरह वफा का छोड़े न छूटे कभी तोड़े न टूटे कभी जो धागा तुमसे जुड़ गया वफा का मैं तेरा सरमाया हूँ जो भी मैं बन पाया हूँ तुमसे ही रास्ते मिल जाते हैं मंजिलें मिल जाती हैं तुमसे ही ना है ये पाना ना खोना ही है तेरा ना होना जाने क्यों होना ही है
The country's first long distance calling card, Keith. उन लोगों के लिए जो ज्यादा बातें करना पसंद करते हैं।
एक्सक्यूज मी सर, इंडिया में आपको कॉलिंग कार्ड्स का आइडिया कैसे आया?
दुनिया छोटी होती जा रही है और इंडिया बड़ा होता जा रहा है। आज हम दुनिया भर से बातें करते हैं। आइडिया ये है कि
एक दिन हमारे गांव में किसी ने नहाने का शावर रख दिया।
से गुनगुनी धूप की तरह से तरन्नुम में तुम छू के मुझे गुजरी हो यूं देखो तुम्हें या मैं सुनूं तुम हो सुकून तुम हो जुनून क्यों पहले ना आई तुम कैसे मुझे तुम मिल गई किस्मत पे आए ना यकीन मैं तो ये सोचता था कि आजकल ऊपर वाले को फुर्सत नहीं फिर भी तुम्हें बना के वो मेरी नजर में चढ़ गया रुतबे में वो और बढ़ गया
बदले रास्ते झरने और नदी बदले दीप की टिमटिम छेड़े जिंदगी धुन कोई नहीं बदले बरखा की रिमझिम बदलेंगी ऋतुएं अदा पर मैं रहूंगी सदा उसी तरह तेरी बाहों में बाहें डाल के हर लम्हा हर पल
जिंदगी सितार हो गई रिम झिम मल्हार हो गई मुझे आता नहीं किस्मत पे अब
Thank you is not enough what you did.
I did a mistake, that's all.
How did you get the house back from the bank?
I bought the bank.
The whole bank.
It's like a reflex with me, I don't know.
You get the house. How did you get the house back from the bank?
I bought the bank.
The whole bank.
It's like a reflex with me, I don't know.
What? It's actually the worst job you can get in a crime lab, but my foot's in the door.
Yeah, I got a recommendation from a friend.
This is like a job.
Job.
Look at you go.
Darkness, the truest darkness, is not the absence of light. It is the conviction that the light will never return.
Must be 150 feet.
Must be.
Big round table. 6 chairs. Right there.
But room for more.
A room for more.
But the light always returns to show us things familiar. Home, family, and things entirely new or long overlooked. It shows us new possibilities and challenges us to pursue them.
Yeah, and Jerry Manasco runs the whole kit. I mean, he did the Bilbao job 2 years ago. Yeah, has it all in storage in Croydon. Belgium. Right, yeah.
This time, the light shone on the heroes, coming out of the shadows to tell us we won't be alone again. Our darkness was deep and seemed to swallow all hope. But these heroes were here the whole time to remind us that hope is real, that you can see it. All you have to do is look. Up in the sky.
When it comes to superheroes, there's more to them than meets the eye.
I'm asking for your help. I believe there is a stranger who comes to this village from the sea. He comes in the winter when the people are hungry. He brings fish. He comes on the king tide. That was last night.
Ef hann þá til, þá skal ég skila þessu til hans.
Icebergs in the harbor. 4 months since the last ship got through.
Well, this stranger doesn't come by ship. There are enemies coming from far away. I need warriors. I'm building an alliance to defend ourselves. Look, I'll give you 25,000 to talk to this man right now, outside.
Nokud visum allowed me of the person.
Tell me what those 3 boxes are and I'll make it 30.
You should get out. Can you at least point me to Atlantis?
Arthur Curry. Also known as Protector of the Oceans, the Aquaman. I hear you can talk to fish.
So let me get this straight. You do it dressed like a bat. Like an actual bat.
Worked for 20 years in Gotham.
Oh, that shithole.
When the fight comes, we'll need you.
Don't count on it, Batman.
Why not?
It's not like you coming here digging into my business, getting into my life. People from Atlantis tell me do this, now you say do that. I want to be left alone.
That way you help these people out here in the middle of nowhere? Because you can just leave?
I help them because no one else does.
You want to protect them, you need to work with me.
Strong man as strong as alone. You ever heard that?
That's not a saying. That's the opposite of what the saying is.
Yeah. Doesn't mean I'm wrong.
You ever hear of Superman? He died fighting next to me.
My point exactly.
What's in the 3 boxes?
It's ancient history.
What is it? Mankind's melting the polar ice caps, destroying the ecosystem. They got it coming?
Hey, I don't mind if the ocean dries.
How about if they boil?
Dressed like a bat. You're out of your mind, Bruce Wayne.
doesn't mean I'm wrong.
What's going on, guys? In this video we're going to build a real-time chat application from scratch called ChatCord, and we're going to be using Node.js, Express, and WebSockets using socket.io. So I just want to give you a quick demo of the application before we start. So we have this landing page or this join page where we can enter a username and we can choose a room to join. So I have just programming languages, but obviously you can use whatever you want. You can also just have a blank text field and have the user put the room name in. But we'll go ahead and click join, and now you can see we get the chat interface, the room name, which is JavaScript, the users in the room, which is just me at this point, and we have the message area. So I can send in a message here. I'll just say hello, and that will display here. Now I'm going to just copy this localhost 3000 and go to a new tab. And this is going to be looked at as a new connection or a new client. So let's call this user John and join JavaScript. And notice that Brad is already in the chat. And if I go back to the tab, the first tab, you'll see we get this John has entered the chat. So whenever a user enters or leaves, we'll see that message here. Okay, and if I send something like, let's just say hello John, and send, and I go to John's tab, we'll see that right away. So WebSockets is a protocol that allows us to basically have bidirectional communication. You can kind of think of it as an open door between your client and your server. So it's, we don't have to do refreshes or anything like that, like traditional HTTP requests. So it's really cool. What else? So if we leave the room here and go back to this tab, you'll see John has left the chat. And if I join a different room, like let's say Python, and I go ahead and type something in here, that's not going to show up over here because this is the JavaScript room. So this is the app that we'll be building, and we have scroll functionality. So if I, put something else in here, you'll see we have the scroll bar, and it auto scrolls down So as soon as I type something in, it brings me right down as well. All right, so that's what we'll be building. Now I have the HTML and CSS all done. So if I go into VS Code, you'll see I have a folder called public that has two HTML files, index.html, which is the landing page or the join page, and chat.html, which is the chat interface. And right now everything's hard-coded. You can say I just have hard-coded users and hard-coded messages, but obviously we're going to use JavaScript to insert whatever we need to into the DOM. And we're using vanilla JavaScript on the front end. We're not using React or anything like that. And then I just have my CSS file and a front-end main.js file that's completely empty. Now to get to the point that I'm at, just create a folder called public, and in the description you'll see a link to the GitHub, and there's a folder called HTML CSS, which just has basically the static template. So you can go ahead and just copy this stuff and put it into a folder called public, and then you should be ready to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, we want to, of course, open up a terminal, and you need to have Node.js installed because we're using Node and Express and NPM, which is the Node package manager, and we're going to go ahead and use NPM to initialize a package.json file by doing NPM init. And this, of course, is in the root, not in the public directory. So let's just go through this package name, version, description. We'll say real-time chat app with rooms. And entry point, I'm going to use server.js, and author, of course, you can use your own name, and then license, I'll do MIT. So that creates a package.json, which is just basically a manifest with some information, any dependencies that we install, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and install what we need for this project. So npm install Express, which is our web framework. We need socket.io, which is a framework for dealing with WebSockets, and also Moment, which is Moment.js, and it's used to format dates and times. So those are the only dependencies that we need in terms of regular dependencies. I do want to install NodeMon as a dev dependency. So let's say npm install -uppercase D for dev dependency, and then NodeMon, just so we don't have to keep restarting the server every time we make a change. It'll constantly watch it. All right, and then we just want to create a couple scripts, so we don't need this test script, so we'll create a start, and all this is going to do is call node, and then the file name, the main file, which is server.js, or just server, and then we'll have a dev script that will call nodemon, and then the file name, which is server. All right, so that's all we have to do in the package.json, so we can go ahead and close that up. So let's create our server.js. Okay, so this is basically, this is our backend, this is the entry point to everything, and we're going to bring in Express. Basically, I'm just going to create a very simple, just regular Express server first, and then we'll move on to implementing socket.io. So let's bring in Express, and let's initialize a variable called app and set that to Express. And then on that app variable, on this object, we can call listen to run a server, and this takes in a port number. So let's create a variable called port, and I'm going to use 3000, but I'm going to also say or process.env.port. So it's going to look to see if we have an environment variable named port and use that. If not, then use 3000. And we just plug that in here, and then we can optionally have an arrow function, and we'll just do a console log here with backticks and say server running on port, and then use our variable syntax to put in that port number. So just this, just this should actually run by doing npm run dev, because we created that dev script, and we get server running on 3000. Now, I want to have this public folder set as our static folder so that we can access these HTML files and access our front end. So the way that we're going to do that is by setting here, let's say set static folder, and with Express we just do app.use, express.static, and then the name of the folder that we want. And I'm just going to use the help of the path module, which is a Node.js core module. So I'm going to bring that in. So we're going to require path. And then inside here, we can simply say path.join, and we want to join the current directory, so dir underscore or double underscore dir name, and then the public folder. And that sets it as our static folder. So now if we go to a browser and we open up HTTP localhost 3000, we should see the index.html page. And if we put in a username here and join, it'll just bring us right to chat.html because that's being used as an action. So in our index, you can see the form here as an action of chat.html, so it directly submits to it. There's no front-end JavaScript or anything, it just submits. And since we have, an input here and a select, that's going to automatically get put up here in the query string. And we're going to grab onto these later on and implement them into our application. Okay, so right now we just have a bunch of static stuff here. These are all just hard-coded with HTML. So the next thing I want to do is set up our server to handle socket.io. So we're going to go up here and first of all bring in the HTTP module, or package, or whatever you want to call it. And this actually is used by Express under the hood. So there's a method called create server that Express actually uses, but we want to access it directly because we need to in order to use socket.io. So what we'll do is create a server variable and set this to HTTP, and then we want the create server method, and we can actually pass in our Express app. And then instead of doing app.listen, we're going to do server.listen. And it should still work. We'll just stop the server with Control-C and run it again, and you can see it still runs. All right, now to use socket.io, we have to first bring it in. So we're going to call this socket.io, set this to require socket.io, and we want to initialize a variable called io and set that to socket.io, and then just simply pass in our server. Okay, and that way we can now, let's actually go under this, and now we can say run when a client connects. So we can take that io variable or io object and say .on, which is going to listen for some kind of event, and we're going to listen for our connection. And then this will take in an arrow function with socket to pass in our server. Okay, and that way we can now, let's actually go under this, and now we can say run when a client connects. So we can take that io variable or io object and say .on, which is going to listen for some kind of event, and we're going to listen for a connection. And then this will take in an arrow function with socket as a parameter. Okay, and I'm just going to, for now, just say console log, and let's say new WebSocket connection. So we'll save that. Now, whenever a client connects, it should go ahead and console log this. So we don't have anything set up on our front end to be able to do that, so let's jump into chat.html. And now that we have socket.io set up on our server, we can use the front end library here. So in our chat.html, we're going to add another script tag with a source, and we should be able to access socket.io/socket.io.js. Okay, so that'll give us access to the front end library, and in this main.js, we can access the io method and everything we need to. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just close that up for now, and let's go into our front end JavaScript, which is public.js main.js. Now in here, I'm going to create a variable called socket and just set that to IO, which we have access to because of that script tag we just added. Now just having this, if I go back to our front end here and I reload the chat HTML, reload it a couple times, down here in the server console, you'll see this new WS connection. And that's because of this right here. It's actually connecting, and we're just reloaded a couple times. Down here in the server console, you'll see just now in here, I'm going to create a variable called socket and just set that to IO, which we have access to because of that script tag we just added. Now just having this, if I go back to our front end here and I reload the chat HTML, reload it a couple times, down here in the server console, you'll see this new WS connection. And that's because of this right here. It's actually connecting, and we're just logging. Now, this doesn't do us much good. What we want to do is send or emit messages, or I should say events, back and forth. That's really how this works. It's an open bidirectional communication. Think of it as an open door between the client and the server, and we can emit events back and forth. So I want to be able to emit a message to our client from our server. So in our server.js, make sure we're in the connection here. We're going to emit, so socket.emit, and we'll call this message. You can emit whatever you want, call it whatever you want, and then also send whatever data you want. In this case, I'm just going to send a string that says welcome to ChatCord. Okay, now I'm going to save this, and the way that we basically catch this on the client side is in our main.js. We can now take that socket variable and say socket.on, just like we did on the server, and say on message. So whenever we get this message event and we get a message, we get a function here with a message parameter, because on our server side we sent this right here, which is going to be this message. In fact, I'll console log this message, and if I save that and we go back and then I open up my client side console and reload, we get welcome to ChatCord. Okay, because that fires off right away. As soon as we're connected, it logs here on the server and then it emits the message, which we then catch here and then log. Now, we're going to be sending a lot of different types of messages. We have our welcome, so we emitted this welcome message. We're going to send, of course, when we type in a message. Also, when someone connects and disconnects, I want to have a message. So I'm going to go right here, and let's say broadcast when a user connects. So for this, we're actually going to do socket. Instead of just .emit, we're going to say broadcast.emit. Now, the difference between socket.emit and broadcast.emit, this will actually emit to everybody except the user that's connecting. We don't need to notify the user that's connecting that they're connecting. This will emit to just the single user or the single client that's connecting. And then if you want to broadcast to everybody, like you would when we send a message, you would do io.emit. Okay, so there's basically three ways to do it. This is to the client, the single client. This is to all of the clients except the client that's connecting. This is to all the clients in general. All right, so we want to broadcast when a user connects. So this is going to be message. And the message is going to be a user has joined the chat. And later on, we'll have actual usernames. Now, at the same time, when there's a disconnect, so down here, let's say this runs when client disconnects. And then we just want to say socket.on disconnect. I know it's a little weird that like this is inside of the connection, but it has to be. You don't want to have this outside of it. So on disconnect, then we're going to have a function. I'm just going to use an arrow function. And I want to then emit to everyone that the user has left the chat. So we're going to do io.emit, meaning let everyone know. And we want to emit message. And we'll say a user has left the chat. All right. So this here, let's just say welcome current user. And we don't actually need this console log anymore. Okay. So with all of these, we're emitting message, which we're catching here. So it should log all this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and reload here. And I'm going to take localhost 3000 and go to a new tab. And this really doesn't matter. This is just going to bring us to chat.html. So we'll go ahead and join. And then over here in the console, you'll see a user has joined the chat. If I either leave room, which will just bring me back to the form, the join, or close the tab, you'll see now a user has left the chat. So those broadcasts are working correctly. Now, the next thing I want to do is implement this messaging. So if we type something in here and send, we want to then emit that to the server and then have it sent back so we can put it into the DOM. So let's go to our main.js, and we need to somehow access that form. So let's create a variable called chat form and bring in that DOM element. So document.getElement by ID, and that form has an ID of chat form. So if we look at chat HTML, where is it? Right here, form ID chat form. So we want to basically create an event listener for the submission of that form. So we'll say message submit, and we'll take chat form and add an event listener. We want to listen for a submit, and then that's going to take in a function. I'm going to use an arrow function, and we want to pass in the event parameter here because when you submit a form, it automatically just submits to a file, and we want to stop that from happening. So we can use e.prevent defaults, which will prevent the default behavior. And then we need to get the text input, and we could do that a few ways. We could grab it from the DOM, but I think a neater way to do it is to, let's just call this message. We can take e.target. Okay, so that'll give us the current element, and we have access to elements, and then we want MSG. So basically, we're getting it by its ID, which if we look at chat HTML, has this ID of MSG. So we're getting that, but we do want the value, so we have to do .value. And then what we'll do is console log MSG. So now when we submit the form, it should get the message from the text input and then just log it on the client side. We're not yet dealing with, emitting it to the server or anything, but let's just try that out. So reload, type something in, send, and it logs. Now instead of console logging, we don't want to do that. We want to socket.emit. Okay, so we're going to emit, and we're going to give this a name of chat message, and we're going to send that message as the payload. Okay, so I'll put a comment here. So we're emitting a message to the server. Let's see here. We'll just say get message text. All right, so now on the server side, let's go to the server.js, and we emitted chat message. So now we basically have to catch that. So within this connection here, let's say listen for chat message. And the way we do that is with socket.on. So on chat message, then we're going to have a function, an arrow function, with message as parameter that we can have access to, and I'll console log that on the server side. So now when I send a message, it should log down here on the server, right? So let's reload this and just type something in and send, and if we look down in VS Code in the terminal, it's logging on the server. Now what we want to do is emit this back to the client, right? So we want it to emit to everybody, so we use io.emit, and we want to emit as message, just like everything else that we've done, and send the message. So now it should log, it should call this because it's on message, it'll get it as the argument, and then we're console logging it, right? So let's reload, type something in, send, and it logs here. Now, obviously, we don't want to just log this. I mean, that's stupid. We want to output it here, right? So we're going to have to do a little bit of DOM manipulation. Now, you could use some kind of template engine like Handlebars or Mustache. You could also use a front-end framework like React or something, but we're doing this all vanilla JavaScript. So what we'll do is we'll have a function called output message, and we'll pass in the message. So obviously, we have to, let's put a comment here. So this is message from server. And then down here, let's create, let's say, output message to DOM. So function output message, which takes in a message. Now we have to do a little bit of DOM manipulation here. So I'm going to create a div, and we'll set this to document.createElement, which does just that. We're going to create a div. We want to add a class to it, because if you look at the format of the messages, so we have a wrapper, or is it, of chat messages, and then each message has a div with a class of message. And then inside that, we have 2 paragraphs for the meta and the text. So we want to add this message class. So let's do that. Let's take the div and say class list, which will give us all the classes, but we want to add onto that the class of message. And then we want to take that div, and we want to set the inner HTML equal to some backticks. And if we look in the HTML, again, the 2 paragraphs, we can just copy this, paste that in there. Now, we don't have access to a name or time or anything, but remember, we do have the message, so we can replace that with message. And then the last thing we need to do, since we already have everything created, is put it into the DOM. So we'll say document.getElementById, and let's grab the, or actually, we don't have an ID, do we? Basically, we want to take this chat messages right here, which is a class. So let's actually use query selector, and we want to select the class of chat messages, which is the container, and then we want to append child and append the div. Okay, so whenever we create a message, it should add a new div to this chat messages. So let's try this out. It should work. So I'll reload, and we automatically get welcome to Chatcore, because that's sent from the server right away when we join, right? So up here, we catch it, we're logging it, and then we're setting it to this output message, which then puts it into the DOM. Now at the same time, when a user joins or leaves, or we send a message, it all gets emitted as message. So all of these are getting caught right here, right? And it's going to run this. So this is hard. We should left. Now at the has joined. It does get actions. So we're going to blast. To do this, we can simply take the chat messages and set the scroll top property. So at the bottom, even if I go, so if I reload, chat messages scroll height is. And that should automatically do that scroll thing. So let's check it out. So if I reload and send, so now you can see I'm always at the bottom. Even if I go up here, if I send, it brings me right down to the bottom. Now another thing I want to do, like I said, I want to clear out the input. So after we emit chat message to the server, let's go ahead and clear our input. So we'll take e.target.elements.message and set the value to nothing. And then we'll also just focus on it by calling the focus method. So now if I reload here and I say hello and I send, it goes away and it focuses on an empty input, which is what I want. All right, so all that's working great. So now let's move on to, let's see, what do we want to move on to? I think we're ready to start doing like users in rooms, because right now we have just the message stuff set up. Actually, you know what? Let's format the message, because right now it's just a string. It's always just a single string. I want it to be an object with a time. Ultimately, we want the user and stuff like that. So let's go to server.js, and everywhere where we send a string here, I want to wrap it in a format message function. So I'm going to create in the root here a folder called utils, and in utils we're going to create, let's call this message or messages.js. And in this messages.js, I'm just going to create a function called format message. Oops, format message is a function, and it's going to take in 2 things, a username and the text message. And from that, we want to return an object with the username. So it's just like doing this with ES6, we can just put in just the username, text, same thing. And then I also want to add the time, which I'm going to get from that moment.js library that we installed. So let's say const moment equals require moment. And this is really easy to work with. If we want today's, or right now, like this date and time right now, we can just use moment.format, although that's not going to look too good, so we can actually put some stuff in here. All I want is the time. So hour, minutes, and then AM or PM. And that's it. We just need to export this. So module.exports equals format message. And then we can bring that into our server.js and use it. So up here, let's say const format message equals require. We want to go to utils/messages. Now, everywhere that we send a message, we actually want to, instead of just sending a string, we want to send format message with a username. Now this stuff here, like a welcome, just make sure we add our ending parenthesis. Everything that is like a welcome or user join the chat, that's going to be from the Chatcore bot, or whatever you want to call it. You can call it admin or whatever. And since I'm going to use this in so many places, I'm going to actually create a variable called bot name, and we'll put that right up here. Const bot name equals Chatcore bot. So we're passing in the username and the message. Again, we're calling this function username, and well, I should say text. The whole thing is the message. That's just the text. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now I'm going to just copy this, and we want to do the same thing here. So let's see, bot name, and then add the closing parentheses, and then we don't want to. Let's see, let's do this, disconnect. Okay, so bot name, close that. And then this here, where we're actually taking the message from a user, we're not going to be using bot name. So what I'll do is for now, let's wrap that. For now, let's just say user. That's going to be replaced later on. So if we save this, let's go back and reload. Now, notice what we're getting back from the server now, an object with username, which is chatcord_bot, in this case, text and time. Okay, now in here, we're now seeing just an object because this is no longer just a string, it's an object. So these two we can ignore. In fact, we can get rid of those if we go to our template right here. Just get rid of these two hard-coded messages so that it's just an empty div, an empty chat messages div. That way we don't have to deal with those two phony messages. So in order for this to show the text, we need to go to our main.js and go down to the output message. And this is now an object, right? It's no longer a string. So we want the text property from that. Also, we can get the time now. So we can set this to message dot time. Okay, the user, actually, no, we have the user. That's right. So we'll set this to message dot user. Is it user name? Let's see. Yeah, username. All right, so let's save that and go back and reload. And there we go. So chatcord_bot, 3:33 p.m., which is the correct time, and the message text. And if I say hello, of course, right now it just says user because we don't have that functionality yet. But if I go to, a different, let's go here, room doesn't matter yet, but if I go back over, we'll see from the chatcord_bot, a user has joined the chat. All right, awesome. So now we want to start to implement users and rooms. So the way that this is going to work, if I leave the room and I type in something here and join, notice that we have the username, we have some query strings with the username and the room. So that's ultimately where this is coming from. And we want to grab these somehow. Now there's a library called QS, or query string, that we can use to grab these values. So let's close that up and let's search for QSCDN. So this link right here, I'm going to grab the minified version, so just copy script tag, and we want to put that in our chat HTML right above our socket.io library script. So now we have access to this query string library. And the way that we can get those values is actually pretty easy. So up here at the top, let's go right here. Let's say get username and room from URL. So we'll say const, and we can use destructuring to get the username and the room. And we can get that from the QS library from a method called parse. And we can get the URL with location.search, window.location.search. And we just want to add in an option here because we don't want to get the symbols, or I should say the characters like the ampersand and the question mark. So there's an option that we can use here called ignore query prefix. And we want to set that to true. We want to ignore that. Now, just to show you that we can get these, let's just log both of those. And now if I go back and enter the chat, you'll see it's logging Brad in JavaScript. So now we have access to these. So now let's emit an event to the server with these two things in it. So instead of console logging here, actually, let's just get rid of that. We want to go under the socket. And let's say join chat room. So we'll go ahead and emit an event called join room, and we'll go ahead and send an object with the username and the room. Now we can catch this on the server side. So let's go to our server.js, and we'll just go right to the top of where this connection is. Let's see. Yeah. So basically, we have to go right here and say socket.on join room. Let's see. Yeah, join room, and then that takes in an object with username and room, and this is going to be an arrow function. Now, since we're using rooms from this point on, this welcome and stuff like that, the welcome in this broadcast is actually going to go inside the join room. So we're going to go ahead and just cut that. Yeah, cut that and paste that in here. I actually want the disconnect at the end, so I'm going to put that under this chat message. Okay. Now, so we're welcoming the user to the room. We need to join the room because right now we haven't done that yet. We're just responding to this event. So we need to actually create a user. So what we'll do here is, actually, before we do anything, let's create a new file in utils called users.js. And anything to do with users will go in here. So join when they leave, if we want to get all the users in a room, stuff like that. So we'll have our state, which will just be an array. And obviously, you could connect up a database if you wanted to, but we're just basically keeping everything in memory. So join user to chat. So let's say function user join, which is basically just going to add a user to the array and return it. So in here, it's going to have an ID. Every user needs a unique ID, a username, and a room. So we want to create user from the stuff that's passed in. So an object of ID, username, and room. And then we want to add to the array. So we'll take the user's array and push onto it that user. Okay, and then ultimately return that user. Now at the same time, I'm going to create another function to get the current user. So let's create a function called get current user, and we'll get the user by its ID. And we're just returning the array, and we'll use the find method, which is a high order array method, takes in an arrow function. So for each user, we're going to pick out the user where the ID is equal to the ID that's passed in here. Now we need to just export these. So module.exports user join, and also get current user. So now we can bring this into our server.js. So I'll bring in from utils, users, and we're bringing in a few things. So we need curly braces. We want user join and also get current user. Now back down here where we have this this join room. Let's see, yeah, join room. So we need to actually join. So we have this room functionality with socket.io, so we can do that with socket join. Now I could join like a hard code like JavaScript or something, but we want whatever room that the user joins, which ultimately comes from the URL. So let's set a variable of user here to user join. Okay, so this user join takes in an ID, a username, and a room. Now we already have the username and the room coming from here, so we'll paste that in. The ID, however, I'm going to use the ID of the socket. So socket.id. Okay, so that comes from here. That's going to be the user's ID, and then we want to join the user.room. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now this is fine, the welcome message. However, when we broadcast, it's going to be to the room. So we actually need to do broadcast.to, like this, .emit, and then put in the user.room. So this is how you can emit to a specific room. So let's save that, And let's see, I guess we could try this out. One thing we could do here is instead of a user has joined the chat, we now have access to the username. So we can let's replace these with backticks, and let's say user.username has joined the chat. All right, so let's try that out. I'm going to go back here and say Brad, join JavaScript. Okay, if I say hello. So this still says user, but we'll fix that. But what I do want to try is opening another tab and making sure that we have room functionality as far as like telling us they joined the chat. So if I do Kevin into JavaScript, we get Kevin has joined the chat. If Kevin leaves, we still have a user we'll fix that. But what I really want to test is if Kevin goes into PHP to make sure that it doesn't say anything over here, which it doesn't. So that's good. All right. So now let's, what do we want to do next? Let's deal with the messaging, because right now, like I just showed you, it just says user. So back here, let's go down to where we're doing this listen for chat message. And remember, we have that get current user method we created. We're going to use that here. So we're going to set the user to get current user and pass in the socket.id to get that user. Now, just like we did above, we want to do io dot and then to, and then the room.emit. So it'll be user.room, or else we'll just emit to every room. And now we can replace this with user.username in the message. So now, if we go back and reload, and I try to send a message here, now it gives me my name right here. All right, so messages are nicely formatted with the name, the time, and the text. And it's only being sent to this room. And then the room.emit, get current user method we created, we're going to use that here. So we're going to set the user to get current user and pass in the socket.id to get that user. Now, just like we did above, we want to do io dot and then to, and then the room.emit. So it'll be user.room, or else we'll just emit to every room. And now we can replace this with user.username in the message. So now, if we go back and reload, and I try to send a message here, now it gives me my name right here. All right, so messages are nicely formatted with the name, the time, and the text. And it's only being sent to this room. All right, now we want to do the same with like when the user leaves the chat, because right now it's just going to say a user has left the chat. I don't know why I keep clicking over there. So in our users.js, we're going to have a couple more functions. So let's do user leaves chat. So function user leave. We need the ID of the user. And basically we need to remove the user from the array. So I'm going to just, there's a lot of ways you could do this, but we're going to set an index and use users, which is the array, dot find index. And we want to say for each user, we want to find where the user.id is equal to the ID that's passed in. That'll give us the index. Then we want to check to see if the index is not equal to -1, because the way this works is if it finds it, it returns it. If not, it returns a -1. So if not indexed, then we want to return the user's array without that user. And we can do that by using splice. So we're going to splice it out by the index, and we're splicing 1. We're taking out 1 and returning it. Okay, so that's user leave. And then the last function is going to be to get room users. So let's say function get room users. And obviously we need the room. And we can, this is pretty simple, we can just use filter. So we can say for the users array, we want to filter through. And we want to say for each user, we want to return only if the user room is equal to the room that's passed in. All right, and then we just need to export those. So user leave, user leave and get room users. And then bring those into server.js up here. All right, cool. So let's see, in the disconnect right here, so when we disconnect, we want to run that user's leave, right? So let's set, we need to know which user left. So let's set user to user leave and pass in the socket ID to get that user, and then check for the user. And if that user exists, then we want to do this. So we can actually just move this up into here, except we want to do io.to the user.room, and we want to emit, and then we want to say the user's actual name here. So let's turn these into backticks, and let's say user.username has left the chat. All right, now that should work. I mean, we can test that out real quick. So if I open up another tab, okay, join. So we should see over here, John has joined the chat. And if I leave, whoops, that didn't work. Leave. Okay, so it's not doing left the chat. So I must have messed something up here. So disconnect, const user, user leave, io.to, the user room, we're emitting a message, formatting it. So this didn't even, let's see, did I mess something up here? User leave. So user leave, ID, users find index, the user ID is equal to ID, the index. If it's not equal to -1, then we're going to, oh, so instead of returning the entire array, we just want to return the user. So we need to just put in the 0 index. All right, so let's actually try that again. So, you know what, let's, hold on a second. John has joined the chat, let's leave. John has left the chat, all right, so cool. So now we want to work on this stuff over here, the sidebar. We need this info, right? So in server.js, we have our connection, we have our join room. Let's go to the bottom after the broadcast where someone has joined the chat. Let's send users and room info. So to do this, we'll do io.to the user.room.emit, and we're going to emit We'll call this room users. Okay, and then what we want to send is an object with the room, so user.room, and we also want to send all the users in the room. So remember that get user, what is it, get room users, and then just pass in user.room. So that will send it all. We also want to send it when they disconnect because there's going to be a list of users in the sidebar, and if someone disconnects, then we want to automatically take that user away. So down in disconnect, in this if statement right here, right after the left the chat, we want to do the same thing. Okay, so we'll save that, and now let's go to our front-end JavaScript. So we want to go to main.js, and we have a few things to do here. So let's say get room and users. So socket.on, and we call that room users. And we're going to have a function with whatever the data we passed, which was room and users. So we have an arrow function. Now, we need to output this stuff, so we're going to have a couple more DOM-related functions. One will be output room name, where we pass in room, and then we'll have users, so output users, like that. Okay, now we need to create these two functions. So let's go down here, add room name to DOM, function output room name. So this is going to be pretty easy. If we look in chat HTML where we have the room name, right now it's hard-coded right here. We can actually get rid of that JavaScript. So it has an ID of room name, and then the UL has an ID of users. We can get rid of these hard-coded users. So those are the two elements that we want to bring in and then add the data to, or output the data to. So before we continue here, let's just bring those two in. So we'll say const room name equals document dot, I think it's an ID of room name, and the same thing for our users, which is a UL. So this I'm going to call user list. All right, and then down here, the room name is pretty simple. It's just an H2. So we can take room name, which we just brought in, and just set the inner text, set that equal to, which we just want to set it equal to the room. All right, and then let's create, let's say add users to DOM, room name. So we have JavaScript here. I'm just going to leave the room and join a different one. User list, which is an inside. Now, in order for this to work, we actually have to tack on the join method because it's an array, and save, and that should actually do it. So if I reload, there we go, we have Brad. So let's just try this. Let's say Jack, join Jack. You know what, let me just join thing in here, hello. Jack should see it over here, good. So if I leave the room and that does that, and basically have a, and I hope everybody is keeping safe. So I might be, so I think that should do it. Now, of course, you could add on to this. In fact, I would encourage that if you want to integrate MongoDB or some kind of, SQL database or whatever, and store the users and basically have them log in to join the chat. You could do that. I might actually do something with this. Add a database, maybe integrate Electron and make it into a desktop app. So
Hello everyone and welcome. A portion of this video is sponsored by Efficient R Teslas. Now, I'm not talking about MPG ratings here. Anyone can look up efficiency ratings. The 2018 Model 3 Performance is rated at 116 mile per gallon combined equivalent, but what I'm curious about is how much energy that starts in the battery actually makes it to the wheels to push the car forward. So we're looking for a percentage. What percentage of battery power goes towards useful work, as in actually moving the car? Now, this turned out to be quite challenging to figure out. Collecting the data is very difficult, you have to make certain assumptions, and the real world has a lot of variables that are pretty tough to control. But that's not going to stop us, so let's dive right in. The first method I thought would be rather simple to implement was to just look at my energy efficiency while driving at a certain speed, and then calculate my losses at that speed. Whatever energy is left over is the energy that's either lost as heat or to power the onboard electronics, transmit data, use the 8 cameras and many proximity sensors, and so on. So I started with the data I had from my 2,000-mile road trip that I took my Model 3 on last summer. On that trip, I traveled 1,963 miles and used 560 kilowatt hours of energy to do so. That's an average of about 285 watt hours per mile. Now, most of the trip was spent on the highway with cruise control sitting at 75 miles per hour. Highway efficiency averaged around 290 watt hours per mile, ranging from about 270 to about 310. That was in pretty ideal temperatures. High 70s, low 80s, but almost always the AC was on and set to auto. So if I know my efficiency is 290 watt hours per mile, and I know my speed is 75 miles per hour, I can calculate a few things. First, we're calculating how much energy we need to overcome aerodynamic drag. In this case, we're using 290 watt hours to travel 1 mile, so let's see how much of that energy is needed to travel 1 mile for aerodynamics alone. Energy equals force times distance. We know the equation for force, we simply plug in the numbers. Now, I'm going to use atmospheric pressure and all the usual metrics I generally go with. For the drag coefficient, Tesla states it's 0.23. And for the frontal area, I'm using 25.5 square feet, which I found from someone who 3D modeled the vehicle. More on this number later. Once we convert our units to watt hours, we get 167.8 watt hours per mile. Now for rolling resistance, we take our weight. In this case, there were 2 people in the car plus a ton of extra stuff, so we've got 4,572 pounds total. We multiply that by our rolling resistance coefficient. This is often around 0.015, so we'll plug that in and we get 136.4. Now, this number is super close to the aero number because the car is really heavy, meaning lots of rolling resistance, but also super aerodynamic, meaning low aero drag. Usually these numbers would be further apart, but you've probably already realized 167.8 plus 136.4 is greater than 290 watt hours per mile, our original efficiency. To find out how efficient our vehicle needs to be, we take the total energy we need for steady state 75 mile per hour driving divided by the total energy we used, and we find out the powertrain is 105% efficient at the very least. Oh boy. So multiple things here are wrong. The rolling resistance is probably wrong. It's probably better as Tesla seeks tires that have good rolling resistance. In this case, bespoke Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. The air density is based on standard pressures. It's likely a bit off. And our frontal area is from some random simulation on the internet, so that's probably wrong too. So let's get better data. Now, the first thing that troubled me here is the frontal area. And you might just be like, Jason, why don't you just measure it? It's really not something that's very easy to measure. I thought about taking a string and going around the widest section of the car, but you still have to get the shape right or the area is wrong. I asked Tesla for the figure and they were happy to chat, but ultimately only provided basic dimensions like width and height. But maybe that's all I really need. So there was a very cool study done by Car and Driver, and in this study there is a Tesla Model S tested, which they note has a frontal area of 25.2 square feet. I know the width and height of the Model S, I know its frontal area, and I know the width and height of a Model 3. So, if conveniently the Model S and Model 3 were to have a very similar shape for frontal area, which an overlay of the front profile shows quite obviously, then we can simply use ratios where a bunch of speeds until finally I had built myself a bit of a speed versus fuel efficiency comparison. Now, the only variable that is not stock about this vehicle is that it's currently on a set of winter wheels and tires. Obviously this has an effect, but I don't think it's going to be that large of an effect for various reasons. First, winter tires have higher rolling resistance than summer tires, but I saw a quote from Continental that winter tires can now match the rolling resistance of performance summer tires, and in some cases they're even better. This car comes standard with Michelin PS4S tires, and based on the data I've seen, rolling resistance numbers are actually pretty similar. But there's also the aerodynamic drag portion of a wheel. These obviously aren't going to be as aerodynamic as something with a wheel cover. However, this is the Model 3 Performance, which comes with large 20-inch wheels. These are 18-inch wheels, and they're lighter. Overall at 65, 276.5, and at 70 miles per hour, 307 watt hours per mile. Overall, I'd say the quality of the data I recorded looks decent. It has some flaws, but thankfully the trend is in the right direction, and overall with an increase in speed, there is an increase in energy required. If we look at the total energy used side by side with the amount of energy required for aerodynamic drag, we can see the corresponding bump in aerodynamic drag causes a similar increase in total energy consumption. Now, there's a lot of numbers that go into these calculations, so for a detailed explanation of how they're derived, check out the video description. I do wish the data were a little cleaner, but driving out in the real world means it's very difficult to control all variables. Now, more importantly, what can we learn from this? So if we look at a chart of total energy required to travel 1 mile at a certain speed in blue, side by side with the amount of energy required to overcome aerodynamic drag in red, and rolling resistance in yellow, we can start to get an idea of how efficient the overall vehicle is. If we overlay the aerodynamic energy required on top of the overall, plus the rolling resistance on top of the overall, the remaining blue space is the energy required for everything else that's happening. That means climate control, which in this case was off, the speakers, again in this case off, but other things that are always running, such as onboard computers, the screens, camera monitoring, not to mention of course the drivetrain efficiencies. The power comes from the battery, through the inverters to the motors, through a gear reduction box, all the related bearings, and of course this is an all-wheel drive vehicle, so it's sent to all 4 wheels. Essentially what this graph is showing us is our worst case powertrain efficiency, because here's how much energy we know we need at a minimum to cover 1 mile at 70 miles per hour, and here's how much energy it actually took to do so. So if we divide the needed energy by the total energy, we get a percentage. We can do this for each of our 5 tests, and then take the average of those 5 results, and we get a minimal efficiency of nearly 71%. 71%! Now, perhaps that number doesn't mean much to you. That 29% of total energy remaining goes towards losses, running onboard systems, all-wheel drive, things of that nature. But let's say we had a gasoline vehicle with the same size and shape as the Tesla that got 40 miles per gallon on the highway at 70 miles per hour. And 40 miles per gallon is pretty good for a gasoline engine. Well, in that case, the minimal system efficiency of the gasoline vehicle achieving 40 miles per gallon would be just 26.6%. In this hypothetical scenario, the Tesla is 266% more efficient. If you're curious about the total efficiency from deriving the energy, meaning power production, all the way to the wheels, I have a separate video covering this in detail, linked in the video description. Now, maybe at this point you're not happy with the data I've collected and you're thinking, this is all nonsense. Fair. So I've found some Car and Driver data where they tested their long-range, all-wheel drive Tesla Model 3 with the Aero cover wheels at Chelsea Proving Grounds. So all of their testing was done on a 4.7 mile oval, eliminating elevation changes, traffic, and for the most part wind as variables affecting the results. The one caveat is that their testing was done in 44-degree weather with the climate control on, set to auto at 72 degrees. With the Aero wheels, their efficiency numbers were 250 watt-hours per mile at 50 miles per hour, 310, surprisingly close to my average calculated at 70.66%. Now, they obviously had an aerodynamic advantage from the wheels, and are using all-season tires, which likely have less rolling resistance. But they also have climate control running while it's 44 degrees outside. If you were to turn the climate control off in this scenario, it's not too difficult to imagine seeing system efficiencies greater than 80%. Overall, the Tesla's efficiency is quite impressive. Hence, according to the EPA, the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, with a combined 141 mile per gallon equivalent rating, is currently the most energy efficient car for sale in the US today. Well done. Now again, thanks to LastPass for sponsoring a portion of this video. LastPass is a password